Hey, it's James from 4x4 Earth and welcome to track 23 of the 4x4 Earth podcast. Latest four-wheel drive gear from Sema with Jason Lock.
Join James from 4x4earth.com as he learns all there is to know about four-wheel driving, camping, fishing and getting out and exploring our great country on the 4x4 Earth podcast.
Hey everyone, weather is starting to warm up, the tracks are getting dry, it's time to get out four-wheel driving. How exciting is it? So today's a really interesting podcast. We've got Jason Lock, who has just come back from SEMA, which is the huge trade show in the United States where there's a whole heap of automotive and four-wheel drive products for everyone to have a look at. So we're going to have a look at what caught his eye, how some of the Australian manufacturers are going out there, and we're also going to find out about a really interesting product, the Pressure Perfect tyre management system. Now, this caught Jason's eye. He told me about it and I thought, wow, I've got to have a look at it. I'm super excited about this because I've got to tell you, I am pretty damn lazy when it comes to airing down. And someone may have not aired up from the last time that they were out off-road. I am pretty lazy. And it's not good because it's pretty bad for your tyres and it's pretty bad for your driving. So what this is the Pressure Perfect system. What the guys have done is they've gone out and taken the system where, you know, when you go to the servo and you put the pressure in that you want and you connect the tyre up to the hose and then you just let the compressor do its work and it blows it up to a certain pressure. Now, the thing that's awesome about this is that they have got that entire system in a box, which means that as soon as you hit the blacktop, you can pull over, you can air up. Now, here's the bit that blows my mind. They've got a hose that has got two connections on it, so you can do two hoses at once. This is fantastic. You connect both the hoses up, you dial in the pressure that you want for your tyres, and then you just go off and leave it. The compressor does all of the work, it blows it up, it beeps when it's done, and voila, your tyres are, you're back ready to be, of course you've got to do the other two, but hey, you've just done two at the same time. Now, rather than sitting there watching it, making sure, testing what the pressure is, you can be out brewing up, you can be spending time with the kids, spending time with mates, much better rather than, and the other thing that's super awesome about this is that you can use the same system to air down. So you, once again, dial in the pressure and the tyre will air down to the pressure that you want. Now, how cool would that be the next time you're heading out to Stockton or Robe or going up your favourite rocky track? This is a really cool idea. It's the perfect gift for Christmas and we've been so excited about it. We've actually put it on our website. So I'm going to include a link on the show notes. Check it out. There's a bit of a video of me going out and airing up. And the hilarious thing about this is I thought, oh yeah, I'll just air up a tyre and I'll shoot a quick video. I actually had trouble doing it because it aired up so quickly. So this is a great tool. I'm loving it. Check it out. Check the video out. If you want one, you can purchase it on the Pressure Perfect store on 4x4 Earth. I'll include a link in the show notes. But let's get back to Jason and check out all of the awesome stuff that he saw at SEMA. So welcome back, Jason. And you've just got back from SEMA. What was it like?
Sure have, James. Thank you. It was just amazing. So it's just the biggest thing you'd ever imagine, the biggest car show in the world, trade only, over 100,000 visitors to it over the week-long experience, 40 kilometres to walk up and down every aisle, just more cars, trucks than you've ever seen before.
Wow, 40 kilometres. You'd almost need to drive that.
Almost. You could actually rent a scooter there or a mobility scooter to get around, which a lot of people did. Helped with my Fitbit steps. You know, we're hitting up to 30,000 steps a day compared to the 10,000 that you normally get done. But it was absolutely huge. So a well-vetted show. So you actually had to have industry accreditation to get into the show, go through, you know, some of the process. You know, your lodge going as a visitor 6 months ago. So you've got a barcode hanging around your neck. So everyone can scan and actually see and identify who you are. So it's really good to see who's who. You can clearly see the media there. A very large media contingent from all over the world. So I caught up with a lot of journalists from around the world, a lot of people you only see in SEMA. And I hadn't been for, I think 2004 was my last time there. So economic downturn since then, so the show had gone smaller and actually a lot bigger again now.
Awesome. Why would you go to SEMA? What were the kind of things that you got out of it? What did you see there?
Well, number one, networking and catching up with a lot of people. It was good to see a lot of fantastic Australian products and companies there on display, and also caught up with industry contacts, and you see an awful lot of new products there, and actually just catch up on what trends and which way the four-wheel drive market's heading.
And so what were the big trends that you saw? What do you think that will start? So, and that's one other thing that I'm interested in. How long is it before you see something at SEMA before it sort of hits the Australian shores?
Oh, it used to be 1 or 2 years before you started seeing the American products and the new trends coming out here. But I guess with communication now, a lot of those products are here now and available now and coming out very quickly.
Awesome. So what were some of the great things that you saw?
Oh, it was good to see in the off-road space, it was good to see the big Australian players. ARB, TJM were there with very good displays and lots of products on there as well representing the products. It was good to see Harrop Engineering there with their performance products. And getting there, there was people like Sprintex Superchargers were there. I actually filmed a video and a live interview that went out direct from SEMA, which was good to catch up with the boys. It's another Western Australian company, pioneering superchargers in the off-road industry.
Cool. What were some of the really cool things that you saw?
Oh, coming across the products, there were some really simple ideas I hadn't seen before. Bubarope, which are a specialty recovery company, actually had this really simple idea to keep the last 5 wraps of synthetic rope on your winch drum. So it's just a simple thing, as we all know, all the winch manufacturers recommend, you need to keep at least 5 wraps of cable on your drum for it to not come loose, which is quite important when you're winching. So they had a pretty simple strap called the Grabber that came across there, so we'll put that in the show notes as well. It was actually one of the best new products that awarded by SEMA. I guess one of the things I didn't cover was what is SEMA. So SEMA is actually the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association, which is 50 years old now. And so that was to protect the aftermarket industry against government regulations and I guess cleaning up the industry, which they've done a really good job, very good lobbying company. So quite often, as what happens in Australia, some legislation comes out that would stop us enjoying our vehicles and modifying them, so they lobby against that. And so the Australian Aftermarket Association, the AAA, is a link to SEMA and has actually modelled themselves off there as well. So it's a lot of industry putting back in to protect the industry that we all love.
Interesting. The AAA doesn't have a show, though, in Australia, though, does it?
Yes, they do. Every second year they actually have a trade-only show, a lot smaller, usually in alternating between Melbourne and Sydney, but a lot smaller, Like in 4 or 5 days of walking around SEMA, quite often you don't get to see everything. It's more just on parts here, but in SEMA, everyone shows off their latest and greatest vehicles. So there's ridiculous show vehicles, as well as a lot of practical cars there as well, and trucks. I guess one of the trends this year was really called the Year of the Truck. Just like in Australia, the SUV and the pickup market or Ute market here, it's actually really taking off in the States. It always has been the number one selling vehicle over there. But there's a lot more customisation, and a lot of people have moved out from the hot rodding and side into doing four-wheel drives as well, which is good for us. We get a lot more products out there and a lot more diversity.
And I guess that's one of the things that I think is really a big difference between the Australian and US market is that you don't really have too many companies of the scale of sort of like an East Coast Customs. I would have thought that there'd be very few jobs that get done in Australia that are of the kind that they would highlight and showcase, tragically.
Well, there's a lot of Australian companies, and I guess it's just sheer population, James, which we keep struggling with Australia with about the same population as the greater LA area and about the same land mass. We're very different than what the US is. But there's a lot of ridiculous stuff there as well, and we'll go through some of the fails of SEMA there. A lot of stuff was just ridiculous, why it would drive on the strip. But, talking to the US manufacturers over there and the four-wheel driving enthusiasts, they couldn't believe, the restrictions we have on our modifications to our vehicles there here. So when you're explaining what you're to do in a bull bar design and to make it Australian standard compliant, and there's a lot about pedestrian safety and things like that, and they're going, you get hit by a 3-ton truck, it doesn't matter if it's got a bull bar or not, it's still not going to protect the pedestrian. While we've cleaned up a lot of stuff, and there's a happy medium between what you're allowed to do in the US and what you're allowed to do here. So there's a lot of things that are done to access, like extreme lifts, huge tyres and just, I wouldn't want to drive half the cars there on street conditions. But, there's a happy medium between the two. But just the nanny state of Australia we keep talking about, zero tolerance, they couldn't believe the restrictions we have on what modifications we can do to make our vehicles suitable, for bush conditions.
And that's really the big thing that I find pretty frustrating, is that you've got some people who, for me and you, we choose to put modifications on our vehicles because we like to go four-wheel driving. There's some people who have to go four-wheel driving as a part of their job or as a part of where they live, and yet they're restricted just as we are. And I think you have to admit that really now we're just looking at a overly legislated regime where this whole MAMC thing that we talked with Kaylin in the last episode, it doesn't really look like that's going away. And it's a significant problem for a whole range of people. And the scary thing is that it's only, I don't think virtually anyone really understood this for probably 6 months of those vehicles being out, until people started to pick up just how serious an issue that is. And really, it's just a piece of paper around those vehicles. The vehicles aren't any different. There's been no change by the manufacturer or anything like that. But now you've got a whole range of vehicles that people are buying thinking they're buying off-road vehicles, and yet they're going to be severely limited in the modifications that they can make to it.
Yeah, definitely, James. And I guess the real thing, what I've had problems with, especially, I spent a large part of the last 10, 15 years of lobbying against a lot of these legislation changes, modifying a Skyline, which is what a lot of the rules have come about, and the legislation is totally different than modifying a Patrol or a Land Cruiser. And even in a four-wheel drive space, like a Suzuki Jimny is very different than a GU Patrol, but they've got the same amount of modifications available. So, there is still engineering, but there's not many engineers that will actually put their neck out on the line, and the cost, and it's prohibitive cost of doing a lot of the engineering for these modifications for a lot of people. And all we're trying to do is making a bushworthy vehicle that's also fine on the street, and a well-modified four-wheel drive. In most cases, if it's done sensibly with reputable equipment, it's actually far safer and a better vehicle and causes a lot less track damage than a standard vehicle. It's all done, if it's a thought-out build. Yeah, so it's just making it hard. We're feeling victimised. We've talked about the effect on tourism in areas. Mansfield in Victoria. Everyone jokes about that. Everyone, and it's no joking matter. If you turn up in a mildly modified four-wheel drive, as most of our listeners do for a set-up camping vehicle, quite often they get defected. Through things like 5 millimetres, over height in springs, and so the owner's got no idea most of the time that they have vehicles outside the modifications. They've been to a reputable shop and all fitted up there, and a overzealous law enforcer that seems more intent on getting vehicles off the road for his personal agenda. So the effect on tourism is actually absolutely huge, But who measures that? And you have a town like Mansfield that survives on four-wheel driving and snow traffic. The snow traffic's probably enough, so most businesses don't notice it. But I know that an awful lot of people that I know just avoid the area, and they'll drive well out of the area and not spend money in that town.
And it's interesting because the last 4x4 Earth gathering was at Shipyard Flat, which is just out of Mansfield, probably about 40 minutes on the far side of Mansfield. Beautiful area, lush and green, great river campsite, some awesome camping around there. People made a lot of trips out to a lot of the huts, some iconic high country tracks to be done out that way. So there wasn't as many people as there was last year. Now, obviously, there was a bit of rain effect with that because the Sunday it bucketed down and people knew that was coming. So there was a few people who stayed away because of that, because it's not as much fun camping with the family when it's pouring with rain. But, yeah, I know that there were some people who said that they were worried about going through Mansfield in their vehicle, even though because they just weren't sure what they were going to get picked up on, if anything. Luckily, we didn't have any issues with that. And the latest rumour that I've heard is that a police officer's been moved on. Now, I'm trying to get that confirmed, but, yeah, there was problems within Mansfield with the local businesses because of the drop in tourism. So if that's the case, if anyone knows anything like that, they should let us know, because I'd be keen to get the word out that it's safe to go back through Mansfield, because the snow traffic, that's fine in winter, but you miss out on, that means that your summers are going to be quiet. That's got to be a big drama. Towns like Mansfield, they're doing it tough. They need all of the economic help that they can get, I think.
And if you compare that, you look in the US, one of the iconic towns is Moab out in the desert. So each year they run the Easter Jeep Safari, amongst many other events over there, where the four-wheel drive tourism is actually welcomed and actually keeps the town afloat. And, you see all kinds of things there. It's a different type of environment there. Most people have a pickup truck or a big vehicle and they tow their off-road rigs in on a trailer. But it's encouraged, and you get things out there, and every second four-wheel drive's got tyres hanging out of the guards, and it's everything that we don't condone. But they get along and actually embraced on the town. And if you had 10 times the number of population in a town for an event, you should welcome it.
And I think the perfect example of that would be Robe. Robe in summer, every second vehicle is a four-wheel drive with a massive big sand flag on it. They're only there to go driving on the beach. So I think the fundamental question is for all of the small towns, if you look at like East Gippsland where you got the 90-mile beach, all of those towns that are struggling economically, the massive question is why hasn't the council moved towards putting sand driving in? Because we still haven't made a decision yet. We'll probably go to Robe this Australia Day because that's what we like doing. We like taking the kids out on the beach, doing a bit of driving. It's a great weekend away. And the great thing is you get to catch up with all the South Aussie crew as well. But couldn't we be doing that in Victoria? Couldn't we be getting, meeting up with, getting the South Australian crew across, get some of the New South Wales people down, maybe even some of the Queenslanders, and do a bit of driving down in Victoria? Now, we could probably easily put together a 40-vehicle event, and that's just one event. How many weekend trips would there be? I know the last Robe weekend we did, we had a convoy of probably 10 vehicles, and there's another convoy coming the other way of about 12 vehicles, and that was another 4x4 Earth trip that, wasn't part of our trip. We just happened to meet up on the beach. That's, 20, 25 vehicles. Everyone's fueling up. Everyone's buying a pie at the local milk bar.
Counter meals, buying equipment, just spending money in there, and then you go in and do all the tourist things like support the wineries and everything else there on the drive back and make it a good event.
And Robe is a thriving town. The buildings are new. It looks like there's money that's spent there. It's a proud, beautiful coastal town, and there's so many that could be like that and yet aren't because we can't exercise our freedom to go and drive on the beach, which I think is a real tragedy and a real shame. The government, they come up with all of these economic packages when really I think there's tens of thousands of four-wheel drivers who would prefer to go out and help those rural towns with a little bit of economic aid every time they go and fill up and every time they grab a pie.
And if you look at in Queensland, the same thing. You look at Harvey Bay and Fraser Island. What's their economy based on? It's getting there and getting all those people out there to those iconic spots. And you really talk about, our whole aim is for zero or minimal impact on the environment. And Robe's the best example there. There's clearly given maps out with directions supported by the local four-wheel drive club and the enthusiasts over there. And they show you, and there's big signs to keep off the fragile areas like in the back of the dunes and the environmental areas. And a gust of wind, the next day the tide comes in, everything else like that. Would you even know we'd been there? And snow and sand, I really like that because, it is the lowest impact on the whole environment, which is what we're all setting out to do there as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what were some of the other exciting SEMA-related products that you saw?
Oh, there's some really good things. One of the things that I really like over there, there's like about 4 different rooms over there with the best new products. So this is what the exhibitors have actually put on there for their new products. And it really showcases that. So you're elbow to elbow with media and buyers from all around the world looking at all the new products. So there's actually a showcase system. And went over there. One of the good Australian ones I saw over there was the Pressure Perfect, which is actually, when you go to the servo, James, to fill up your tyres after four-wheel driving and actually setting your lowering or setting your tyres on a digital gauge, they've come up with the same system to attach to any compressor system. So there's actually some really good things there. That's something to look out for. Going through some of the other products there was Factor 55, had some really good products. They've specialised in winch thimbles and the end of winch ropes. So they actually had a repair kit for synthetic rope, which is a really good idea because it's very easy to damage your synthetic rope when you're out there doing recoveries. So it was actually a kit to help you to splice it on there again. And go through some of the other products there. A lot of terrible things there. Like it seemed to be the year of the train air horn. So there was booths everywhere with huge compressors and big air horns, and that was quite annoying. But, sure there's a little bit of a market for those, but there seemed to be the latest product. Then there's a whole lot of integrated tow hooks, which a lot of manufacturers had on their bull bars there as well. Out there as well. So just some really smart things just to make it easy to do recoveries.
The Pressure Perfect gear, I'm actually having to play with one of those at the moment. They are a pretty awesome bit of kit. The thing I like about it is that you can deflate automatically to whatever pressure it is that you need. And so rather than sitting there, letting the air out of your tyres, you can actually be having that done automatically to the right pressure. And more importantly, you can do 2 of them at a time, which I think is a really sweet idea.
And wait till the caravanners get hold of that too. It's actually a really good system. And all made in Rosebud in Melbourne, Australia again.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
One of the other really good things I saw there too was Cummins had actually done a really good job. Cummins, a renowned diesel engine manufacturer, they're actually releasing crate engines to swap diesels into your vehicle, which we really haven't seen before. We've seen a lot of crate engines, V8s and performance engines, but some small diesels that I think will actually make a really good conversion out here in Australia as well for long distance touring and everything else like that too. So they're actually working on a 50-state legal in the US, full emissions ready, designed to go into like a TJ Jeep, so like mid-90s up to mid-2000s. And I think you'll see some really good engine conversions coming up there as well, which will give new life to a lot of four-wheel drives. And take out a petrol engine, which might not be the best for touring and fuel economy. And I think we'll see those out in Australia very soon. One of the Australian magazines, which is actually Jeep Action, we're actually looking at bringing one of the motors out for one of their project vehicles, which would be very interesting. To add a diesel to a early model Jeep, so you can buy a $4,000 or $5,000 four-wheel drive. Probably spend $15,000 putting a diesel engine in it, but for $20,000. You'll get a very trail-ready vehicle that will be reliable to do a lot of kilometres in the outback.
And I guess the big question with that is it California emissions legal or VW emissions legal?
Ooh, James, a bit of controversy there as well. No, they're doing that. We're speaking to the boys from Cummins. They're very passionate about their product. It's the same kind of motor that they sell to a lot of vehicles. You're seeing a lot of the Chinese vehicles now coming out with these Cummins diesels in them. And Nissan in the US have actually put a V8 diesel in their Titan pickup, so there's a lot of those coming out as well. So, trying to make emissions legal diesel to be good on the environment and also get good mileage as well and still good power out of there as well. So I think you'll see a lot of those where the current engine conversion thing is all about putting power and V8s to replace motors. So that actually might be a really good thing. I'm looking forward to seeing them and helping install one of them.
I think that's one of the really interesting points is that because you look at the trend and it tends to be towards smaller motors and less power because of emissions issues. So, and Cummins engines tend to be towards the higher end of the spectrum.
I definitely look at the longevity of one of their motors. They're designed around a million kilometre type life. So they'll actually put some new life into some old vehicles. Again, it's probably more efficient than a Prius because you're actually, the amount of power and everything's used and the battery's being recycled at the end of the vehicle's life. It's just as clean, I guess, if you look at the big picture overall. And that's one of the things that SEMA's tried to do. There was a big thing in the late 90s where fuel companies got credits for crushing old cars. And what's the point of that? And so GM actually got on and actually identified that, and so they did some emissions-friendly performance engine swaps that you could actually put into the vehicles, create a lot less smog as they over there, and it was actually good to see something that's recycled and get those classic cars out there.
Yeah, exactly. And it is going to get more and more interesting because as the focus on emissions becomes harsher, how are we going to power the vehicles of the size that we want? And because the interesting thing is that I would have thought our emissions are probably a bit tighter than they are in the US. I'm not sure. But if you have a look at like some of those vehicles that they have over there, well, a lot of their vehicles are a lot bigger than what we have here.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the other things really exciting to see there was one of the companies actually did have an electric Jeep there. So they had a JK Wrangler on there. It was totally electric powered and had got a good range. They were getting about 300 miles out of it before it needed charging there as well. So it was very good to see actually a modified four-wheel drive. And it wasn't electric motors in each wheel as a lot of people have predicted. It still had a large electric motor and then a gearbox and transfer case like we know it there as well. So it does all the same kind of things and works in just an alternative power plant. So it was really exciting to see that.
Just having a look, an F250 XLT in the United States is $36,000 US.
Yeah, and the Ford F-150 has been the biggest selling car in the US forever. And just the number of pickups you see over there, it's like here, they're such a practical car and they drive so well now, just the size of them, but at least they can fit into car parks over there. You get into my Ranger or your BT50, James, and they're hanging out at the Woolworths car park, aren't they? You can't fit them in the car parks, but over there they accommodate them and they're everywhere over there.
Yeah. It is very hard to find a car park that you sort of fit into, and I've just gotten used to the fact that it's usually there's a fair amount sticking out the end.
So it was good actually to see the aftermarket come together and actually build off-road capable car. There was electric, four-wheel drive. There was actually electric and actually did everything we wanted to do. Had a winch on the front and everything else like that, so it'd be really good for touring. So we'll put up some more information on that as well.
Cars are a lot cheaper in the United States. A Super Duty F450 Platinum is $77,000.
Yeah, and I guess it's the size of our market too, James. And when you... how much is a Land Cruiser, like a 79 series tray here, which is a pretty basic vehicle, is about the same price. But I guess the numbers of them, the amount of laws you have to comply one of those vehicles over here, make a whole new dashboard, everything else in there, that'd be a $200,000 vehicle here.
Absolutely, which is really quite, it's quite sad. And I think it's partially because we're not manufacturing here much anymore and the size of the market.
But I'll tell you what, one thing, James, I'd never swap a lot of the conditions that we have here, and medical and everything else over here is a lot better than a lot of people have over there.
Well, exactly, yeah. So what were some of the fails that you saw at SEMA?
Oh, my number one fail, and it was a really pet hate, was, and a lot of people have had that, there's been a lot of social media comment on that, we call it stretch tyres. Everyone had the widest rims and the biggest diameter rims. So you'd have 26-inch diameter rims, 12 inches wide, and they'll have like a 10-inch wide tyre on them. So the tyres, the tread is actually narrower than the wheel. And as we know, for four-wheel driving, it'd be terrible, but they were just everywhere. And, there's lots of, kill me now if I need to see another one there as well. So you see a four-wheel drive tyre, trying to look like a little drift tyre. It was just terrible. And the all-out show vehicles, and there was cars there with 30 inches of lift, and there was all kind of things over there. It was just terrible to see there as well. And one of the best things I saw there, Bilstein actually had two vehicles over there that they actually left their facility, drove at 400 miles overland through the desert, jumping, crashing, bashing, and going through there as well. And they left the vehicles dirty on display. It was actually good to see. There was actually some vehicles there that had actually been off-road and doing there as well. The amount of light bars and everything over there too, I must get 50 emails a week of a company trying to sell me a knockoff light bar copied off one of the original designs, which is just, innovate, do something yourselves, don't try and trade off someone else's hard work, which was there. And I guess some of the other terrible things there was the knockoff products there, the blatant copies of products, right down to the boxes and the marketing. I know of one Australian company that the knockoffs were so good, their warranty department didn't pick it up for a long time. They were repairing products which they thought were theirs, identical to part numbers stamped on them, absolute blanket photocopies of their existing products, And when you see photocopies of the original instructions, in supplied with these goods. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Do your own thing, people. And it was just really good to see that. There was actually a lot of media over there, James, about they actually got in some US Marshals and shut down a lot of these companies. Made them take products off display, and a whole lot of them actually went home and there was empty trade stands because everything on their stand was a blatant copy and a rip-off of a legitimate company.
Wow, that's really quite amazing because I don't think that would happen in Australia. I don't think that they would have the kind of... I haven't heard of that happening.
I've only seen it a couple of times, and there's a couple of companies here that are unscrupulous and definitely no...
Oh, we know that there's a lot of knockoffs, but I wouldn't have thought that it'd be that easy to get someone to come in and shut someone's stall down and confiscate equipment, and there should be more of that because you shouldn't be able to sell a knockoff. And I know, talking to designers, they get quite upset about the fact that all of their hard work has just been ripped off by someone with a 3D scanner somewhere. But it's interesting that they would be able to get US Marshals in to be able to confiscate gear.
Oh, and obviously it was a very expensive process, but it was actually a point. And, it's very hard for these organisations that run the shows, that actually do this and come through and, have to get rid of their customers. But it was actually good that they actually took a stand. And that's what these manufacturers associations are all about. It's protecting the industry from these knockoffs, as well as the litigation and everything else there, so that we can still earn an income in the industry and also keep producing and keeping people in jobs.
If you're not going to protect the people who are innovating, then they're going to be less likely to innovate, which means that we're not going to have any of the cool products that we like to, put on our vehicles and go four-wheel driving with.
Yeah, and it's all about, and we've touched on this a few times before, but, the bushworthiness of the vehicles and actually having the products to get through safely. Harking back to that Mansfield, example, who goes in to help people when the conditions are there, and the standard government-issued vehicle cannot get these people out, You need a modified vehicle to get in there safely to get in and out.
It was interesting doing some of the tracks out at Mansfield. I think it was one of the places where... So it was... The tracks that we did were really quite easy in the dry, and I reckon they would be really, really, really quite... They would turn quite a lot with just a little bit of rain.
So if you'd bought your four-wheel drive of the year and it actually had an MA rating on it, so you couldn't actually fit the tyres that are needed that are suitable for the conditions.
Absolutely, that's a critical example.
So there's a lot there, and I guess the beautiful thing about SEMA was that you actually got into place and you actually saw from other industries. Quite often we can be blindsided in the four-wheel drive industry and you go to a four-wheel drive specialist show, but seeing all the aftermarket, the hot rod gear and the performance gear and all the stuff out of there too, but you just see the trends that performance market is crossing over into the four-wheel drive market, especially with the Ute and the SUV market. And you only look at the sales here or in the US, everyone's building that dream and actually trying to get out there to do it. And, the other thing that was really good to see there was the US adopting more of an Australian style of overlanding, they call it. We call it four-wheel driving and camping. So they're actually setting up their vehicles to go and camp out of. Traditionally, you'd be there in a soft-top Jeep with your cooler on the back or an esky on the back, and you'd go and camp at the end of the trail in your Winnebago, or you'd be staying in a ranch. But they're all really getting into overlanding, they're calling it, camping, but setting the vehicles up to do everything. So more of an Australian style where we go out and camp in the bush. They're getting out there to do that as well. So it was very good to see a lot of dual-purpose utes, all set up for the back of the ute to be able to work out as a camping and be able to swap it over and make it go to work or, go to the shops and be able to adapt into those areas as well.
Yeah, cool. It sounds like you've had a lot of fun and saw a lot of interesting products. Yeah,
and every second person you saw seemed to be Australian over there, which was good. We were well represented and well regarded in the industry. And you speak to a lot of people over there, even if it's the manufacturers over there. They all say, if the product works in Australia, it'll work anywhere in the world because our conditions are so harsh and we're so isolated, and we build the best quality gear. It's recognised that our manufacturers build a fantastic product.
And it's great to hear of companies like ARB and TJM that are able to go over there and be able to export some gear that's made here too, which is a even more exciting story.
Yeah, fantastic.
Excellent. Anything else?
Yeah, just we'll have a look. We'll put some more pictures up and everything out there, which you can get from the show notes. Just go through there, but well recommend it to see it. You know, it was actually the closest thing I've said. It's like a carnival, so as well as being a trade show, it was actually an awesome vehicle show as well. And just what was, you know, they'd shut down areas of Las Vegas. They actually ran a car show that was open to the public after, and the majority of the show vehicles there actually left the building, hardly a high visibility jacket in sight, and they cruised out and actually put a show on for the public as well, which went on well into the night.
Wow, no high-vis jackets. That's amazing. Weren't like 40 people killed?
No one was killed. I've never been, my early days of doing shows, never had to wear a high visibility vest inside as I was taking boxes out of my car or anything else like that. So the nanny state's well and alive over here.
Sad but true. Well, thanks, Jason, for that report from SEMA. It sounds like there's some good gear, and hopefully we'll start to see some more of it coming over to Australia.
Thanks, James.
Now, isn't it interesting the kind of legislation they've got in the United States and the kind of crazy stuff that they can do with their trucks? I'm not advocating that we should be doing that, because some of those vehicles, they do look pretty untidy, and you wouldn't want to be, you know, cornering too quickly around a road with them. But hey, it really does highlight the kind of issues that we have with the road legislation in Australia, and we can't even get uniform legislation across all of our states. It's a bit of a drama. So that's about it. Once again, check out the details on the Pressure Perfect system. I reckon these are awesome. It's probably one of the most exciting things I've seen in quite a while, and it's going to enable me to air down and air up really quickly. I'll include a link in the show notes. Don't forget, if you're loving the 4x4 Earth podcast, I'd really appreciate a review in iTunes. Let us know what you think, or let us know in the forum as well. Super excited. We hit 100,000 downloads for the podcast a couple of weeks ago, which is a massive effort. That puts us up. And we were Australia's #1 automotive podcast that week, which is just super awesome. So a big thank you to all of the listeners. Once again, if you see me out on the tracks, I love pulling over, having a chat about it, and getting your ideas for future episodes. We're starting to now put in track some of those ideas that we're getting from people from sitting around the campfire, having a chat about the podcast. I'm thinking, yeah, that's a great idea, and hunting people down to talk about on the podcast. So that's about it. Have a great day, and I'll see you on the track someday. Bye.
4x4earth.com is used by over 200,000 people every month to find great tracks, organise trips, and find out how to better enjoy exploring the great outdoors. There's over 1,000 tracks and 300 campsites ready for you to explore. So check out 4x4earth.com today and sign up to get access to the track information, ask questions, and meet other 4x4 Earthers. Membership is completely free. If you're looking for a good route, check out 4x4earth.com today.